and get us started here. Excellent. So everybody, welcome, welcome. Um, so in the chat, if you want to introduce yourself, where you're from, what challenge you're doing, if you're undecided, that's totally okay. If you're new, we love that. If you've done this before, great, welcome back. So we have an example there. We got a lot of content to cover tonight, and I'm really excited. So let's just kind of a few ground rules. Stay muted unless you're speaking. If you are speaking, we will have question breaks. Feel free to unmute. Cameras on or off, totally your choice. You're always free to ask a question using the raise hand feature or put it in the chat. Elliot's going to help monitor the chat here as I go through. So we will answer questions as they come up if it makes sense, or hold them to the point that they are. So we will pause it. No questions are bad. We welcome them all, and we really want you to have fun here tonight. It's DI and the kids are having fun, but you all and all of us in DI are here too having fun. So definitely lots of information, but we want this to not be boring, hopefully, and we want you to have some fun along the way as well. My name is Chrissy. I have been doing DI since I was 9 on Teams, and I'm just turned 41. So it's been a lot of years since I've been part of this program. I was on teams starting in 4th grade all the way through high school. I have been on teams that have placed last at the regional competition. My teams also won 2 global championships. So I'm here to say that if you don't know what you're doing in the first part of this and it's a learning curve, that's okay and that's expected. And you can learn, you can grow, and there's lots of different ways and lots of different levels to participate in DI. In Wisconsin DI, I am part of the committee that trains all of our volunteers. I've been doing it for years. So I train all of you as team managers. I also train all of our volunteer appraisers and challenge masters. So in Wisconsin DI, I am one of the affiliate challenge masters for the engineering challenge. I am also the lead challenge master internationally for engineering. So I'm one of the international challenge masters. And I have done all kinds of different roles in DI. I've been on the board, I've written challenges, I've appraised, I've run summer camps, and now's the time for everybody to laugh to say I've done everything but actually be a team manager. So I've worked with a lot of you, but that being said, I've learned from a lot of team managers about what's important and what things are. And so we really hope that the information presented here tonight is going to help all of you. And also know that the information you're getting is the same way we train all our volunteers on the official side as well. So we want to be consistent, and the rules are the same across the board. And I think that consistency is really important as well. So we've got some goals tonight. There's a lot of ground to cover, and you're not going to walk away from here knowing everything that you could possibly know about DI. But our goals tonight are to talk about what is DI, why do we do this? We want you all to embrace your role as a team facilitator. Notice we call you team managers and not coaches, and that's an important distinction, and we're going to talk about that. And most importantly, I want you to walk away knowing what resources are available to you and how to use them. Because the information that we share tonight, you might not need tomorrow or next week, but you might need it later. And so we want you to be able to go and find that information when you need it so that you have that at your fingertips. We'll take some pauses. We'll keep going along the way here. And we're going to just keep jumping right in. First of all, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. We never have a shortage of kids that want to do DI. Usually our limiting factor are parents and adults that want to do that. And so we thank you for taking time out of your schedule and time here so that you can be here. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for working with your kiddos. We really, truly couldn't do it without you. Elliot has a hand
Oh,
raised.
hey,
Elliot, you
Chris.
want to introduce yourself or do you want
Oh,
to?
I was just gonna say, I don't think the slides are visible
Oh,
unless you're getting there.
anybody else see slides? Oh, I am sharing my screen.
I can see them.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, that might just be a me thing. Okay,
Is that a you
continue.
thing? You might have the wrong window up. If you have the console up, you might not have the view window up. There's a toggle for layout.
We're good, I see it.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. Elliot, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, sure, why not? So, Elliot Cass, I was a participant in the program third grade onwards. And then as soon as I was in college, I was an appraiser for Instant Challenge. And then I worked my way up to being one of our affiliate level Instant Challenge Masters. And then I'm also on the board of directors. So nice to meet everyone.
Thank you, Elliot. Elliot and I work very closely, and he's a wonderful resource. And if you all are interested, he's going to be leading a great Instant Challenge workshop in a couple weeks. So we'll give you more information about that as well. All right. So, what is DI? DI, Destination Imagination, is both a program and an organization. So, we are an international nonprofit with a very, very, very small staff located and headquartered out of New Jersey. But a lot of that staff is spread out throughout the country as well, that serves more than 150,000 participants every year in 42 states, 28 countries, and across 6 continents. So we here do it in Wisconsin, in our small towns, in our big towns, in our regions. There's lots and lots of people throughout the world that are doing this as well. And I think that that's a really awesome thing. And all of the challenges, all of the materials is the same worldwide. And so I think that's really cool as well. Um, Wisconsin DI is your local Wisconsin DI affiliate. And Minnesota DI, I don't have a slide for you and I should, but Minnesota DI, you also have a local affiliate with an executive director. We have 2 executive directors, actually, Mary Bykowski and Michaela Becker. And you in Minnesota have the wonderful Pamela that you're working with and a board of directors. And Wisconsin DI is divided into our 4 regions. And then for Minnesota DI, we have the whole state encompassed for Minnesota DI. And you have dedicated directors that you will have contact with and can reach out to that will give you all of the important information and will run your local tournaments and all of your local activities. And that's kind of your first level here. On the Wisconsin DI website, and we do actually, this is an old screenshot, but there is information as well about Minnesota on here. If you're curious what region you're in or who you will reach out to, the map is there, and there is a link for each region, and the contact information for all of those regional directors are going to be there. You all might have a school coordinator that you work with who may be working with the regional directors. Some of you might be working with them directly, but we definitely want you to be able to find their contact information and reach out to them if you need to. So, WisconsinDestinationImagination.org is kind of the central place where you can get all of that contact information. We will send all of the slides and information out as well after the training tonight. So, feel free to take notes, but also know that all of this content will be sent to you as well. So who can be on a team? So we are going to tonight talk about our competitive teams. We also have Rising Stars and Early Learning teams. So if anybody here is for that, some of this information is relevant for you, but a lot of it is going to be geared towards our competitive teams. So on our competitive teams, you can have up to 7 team members, but you have to have at least 2 to have a team. And students from kindergarten through university level participate. And all kids, regardless of elementary, middle, secondary, or university level, get the same challenges and the same content. They're written in a way that can be solved on very many different levels. And then every team needs at least 1 adult team manager. That's you, in order to help the kids stay on track and keep things moving throughout. So that's kind of who can be on a team and what encompasses a team. And tonight we're going to talk about that you all are part of that team. You have a different role, but you're a very important part of that team in DI. So the challenges are really what the heart of it is. So every year, um, there's 6 challenges that are released that the competitive teams can choose from. The challenges are developed by a team of the staff at headquarters and volunteers and industry experts that come together to write these and really make sure that they're fun and that they're engaging. And there's a lot of learning involved for the kids as part of that. So each and then each year there's also one team challenge that gets written for our rising stars or our early learning teams that they can pick from. So some of you may have already come here tonight knowing your challenges, and that's awesome. If you haven't, one of the first things that you'll be doing with your teams is to review these challenges and help decide which one of these challenges are the kids interested in. All of them have some sort of a main component to them based on the type of challenge it is, but all of them require a performance aspect as well. And so while we want the kids to be able to build something really cool and technical, we also want them to develop those story writing skills and those presentation and performance skills to be able to do both parts of that. So, technical, engineering, scientific, fine arts, improv, and service learning are our 6 main challenges this year, and you'll see those logos attached to each of these challenges as we go through the guides, as you go through all of them and everything. So, on the DI website, there's synopsis of these, but as we get into the materials, you'll want to be able to get into the resource area and download and print those challenges to really deep dive. And we'll talk a little bit more about picking a challenge of areas of interest for your kids. But the goal is that the kids can decide what they're most interested in a lot of different areas so that they're really engaged and having fun with it, and that they are able to focus on something. So, like, if you don't have anybody on your team that wants to act, the improvisational challenge is probably not a great challenge for you, right? Whereas, or if you have kids that all they want to do is make costumes and write a script and a story and don't really want to build anything, then maybe engineering isn't the right challenge for you. So, like, that's part of the fun of getting to know your teams, getting to know what they're interested in so that they can pick a challenge that's going to fit their skills and be something they're excited about diving into. So, when does our DI season take place? So traditionally, our DI season takes place during the school year. So right now is when most of our teams start performing, or not start performing, start forming. So teams typically spend anywhere from 2 to 4 months for preparing for tournament. Some teams started August 1st when those challenges were released. Some teams won't start until after the first of the year, and both are okay. These challenges can be solved in 8 weeks. So if you're just getting started now, you are right on time and you guys have plenty of time to work through this challenge and bring it to tournament. In fact, no matter how early you start the week before, you're going to think your kids are never going to get anything done and you're not going to be ready. It doesn't matter if it's August or January. Guarantee that that's going to happen and that's going to be okay too. They'll pull it together. Speaking from a former DIT member who, definitely changed things the night before a tournament. And then our regional tournaments in Milwaukee, in Wisconsin, will start the end of February and run through March. So now until that tournament time at the end of February is really that work time. We have 4 regional tournaments that we're hosting, and for Minnesota, we'll be hosting your affiliate tournament. So the last weekend in February, we have our Northeast tournament in Algoma and our Northwest regional and our Minnesota affiliate tournament in Hudson. Last year, Wisconsin went to the Minnesota tournament and they hosted. So this year we get to host you all. So we're excited for that partnership, and it just makes the logistics a little bit easier to be able to host a tournament together and make sure we've got enough teams to really make it a really great day for everybody involved. And then in March, the first 2 weeks, we've got our South Central tournament in Orfordville, And then our Southeast Regional is in Germantown on March 14th. So that map that we showed you will tell you what regional you're going to. And these are those dates for your tournaments that you should definitely make sure to put on the calendar. If you're looking at these dates and you do have some sort of a conflict, we'll talk about that. There are options that you could go to another tournament. So if you didn't know those dates and you're hearing them for the first time and there is something that isn't going to work, have no fear. We can still work with you to make it work. At those regional tournaments, teams are going to compete against all other teams in their challenge and in age group, and this should say regional, not sectional. Um, so you might have teams that are elementary, middle, and high school in your same challenge, and they're all going to compete in the same room with the same appraisers. But rest assured that your kids are going to compete with other kids their own age. And so while they may score everything, we separate them out. So elementary is competing with elementary, secondary is competing with secondary. And then who advances to the next level? That remains to be seen. Elliot, I don't think we've made any determinations yet about advancement, have we?
Not yet.
Yeah. So typically, the top few teams for sure advance in each challenge and level to the state tournament. For Minnesota, your top teams will advance to the global finals tournament from your affiliate level tournament. In Wisconsin, you'll have a regional and then our affiliate state tournament and then the global finals. But that really just depends on how many numbers we have overall and what the split is for each challenge. So, like, if everybody decided they were going to do fine arts, right, at a particular region and a certain level, we might advance more teams, right, just to make sure that more teams get to advance. Whereas if there's a smaller challenge, not as many teams may advance. So we look at everybody registered and make those decisions closer to the tournament. And you'll know when the schedule comes out a couple weeks beforehand how many teams you're competing against. And then you can choose to share how much or how little information with your kiddos as you want to with that. At your tournaments, teams will present twice. So you're going to have a team challenge. We're going to talk about that. And that will be a scheduled time. And then you'll be given an instant challenge scheduled time. And that can be anytime during the day. So you should plan to be available for the entirety of the regional tournament day. When you do register, you can request if you have a school related conflict or something that you need to have it in the morning or you need to be a little bit later. And our regional directors will do everything that they can to work through those conflicts. But you should be preparing with your kids and the parents to set aside that entire day. Also, we love participants to come and watch. So, grandparents, parents, the team challenge is open for everybody. And we love it. It's so great when the kids have a full audience full of people that they know. And so, really encourage people to put this date on the calendar and encourage them to come and watch. You'll know a few weeks ahead of time that time that you can share. And we will, at the end of the day, have an in person award ceremony. Rising stars will get their medals right after their challenge, but everybody else will stay until the end. And that's when you'll know how your final scores and how you compete, how you placed against everybody else in the tournament day. All right. And then teams that do well enough at the regional tournaments are invited to participate in our affiliate tournament. Now, Minnesota, your affiliate tournament will be in February, but Wisconsin, you will be in Sun Prairie West on Saturday, April 11th. And teams that do well enough at the affiliate are invited to participate in the global finals tournament. As we go tonight, we'll talk a little bit about goals and things that, you know, your team might want to achieve as part of this. But if you think that global finals might be in your future, please be planning ahead. It is an expensive endeavor. I'm not going to lie about that. And teams that do participate at global finals often fundraise for many months ahead of time. So not only put the dates on the calendar, but start thinking about and talking to others in your community to see what might be available for fundraising. Totally optional for kids to participate there, but I just, definitely plan ahead for the dates, but also if you're thinking global finals might be in the cards, it's something to think about sooner than April. Questions. Let's take a break. I'm gonna have a sip of water and see if anybody has any questions about any of that. All right, let us keep going. So why do we do DI? Kids want to do DI because it's fun. They get to work with their friends, they get to make things, they get to build things. But why we love DI, anybody that's involved in education, parents, employers, are because of all of the things that kids learn around creative thinking, critical thinking, and collaborative problem solving as part of that. They really learn how to work together. They learn how to work on a project for a long term, way longer than anything that they're going to do in school. And essentially, think of a DI challenge like a proposal in a business that you might be given. And it's up to the team to build that project plan, come up with how they're going to meet that proposal and meet all of those requirements and do that. So there's a really, really important real life skills that come out of DI. I by trade am a project manager, and I joke that even though I didn't have a name for it, because if you look in the resource area of the Project Management Institute, and there's all kinds of stuff about project management now in there. Back when I was competing, it wasn't there. But I joke that I've been doing project management since I was 9 on my DI teams. I didn't have the words for it, but I learned how to do that. And it really has helped me as I've grown and as I went through the program in my job every day. The skills I learn in DI I use. So I'm not going to go through all of the details and the explanation of all of this, but there are a few things that I think are important to highlight. One of the really great separating factors of DI is our philosophy of no interference. We in DI want to teach this kids skills and set them up for success. But on tournament day, there's a really pride in the fact that we can say everything that those kids produced and did was theirs and theirs alone. And that it wasn't mom and dad at the science fair that built the thing for the kid. No, 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 no. This is all kid made and kid driven. And that is really exciting because we're teaching our kids, you can do this and we believe in you. So that is definitely a separating factor as part of DI. Resource awareness. The kids have budgets. They have limits on what they can and cannot use to solve these challenges. So we teach them to be aware of what's available, especially an instant challenge. They're going to have 5 minutes to solve a challenge with what's in front of them, and they can't have anything else. So it teaches them to really analyze what they have, what those constraints are, and how to work within that challenge to solve what's before them. We teach them to ask lots of clarifying and critical thinking and questions. They're going to ask, how do we do this? Why do we do this? You as team managers are going to get really good at asking questions too, right? Because you're not going to tell the kids how to do things, but you're going to ask lots of questions to help them figure out how to do things, which I think is really important as well. Um, Idea generation and implementation. Kids are going to have to learn how to very quickly come up with lots of ideas, make decisions, and put them into action. In the matter of a few months for their team challenge, in the matter of a few minutes for the instant challenge portion. Those are really important skills that they're going to learn. And I think one of the best things about it is we also let the kids be their authentic selves and self expression. If they want to run around in fairy wings and tutus, awesome. Everybody is going to think that's really cool. If they want to wear all black and paint and horns, we don't care. Great, bring it on. We want them to express who they are and bring that as part of it. And all of these challenges, while every team has the same one put in front of them, they are all going to be so unique and so different based on those individual personalities. And that's what makes it really fun as appraisers and volunteers to watch them all. I can watch 30 teams in a day, and they're all different. And I think that that's really, really cool. Um, we also teach the kids and you all to go through something called the creative process, where it's pretty logical, right? So the first step is to recognize. Learn how what do we have to do? Recognize what the problem is, recognize what the challenge is, what is it that we have to do? Then they're going to move into the imagine phase. What are all the possibilities of how we might solve this? Let's do some research. Let's think about all of this. And, what might we do? Then they're going to have to work with somebody else, right? Because they're a team, they're not individuals, to collaborate with their teammates and take all of those ideas and what they've learned into action in that collaborate and initiate stage, and then move it and assess, refine, figure out, make sure they're meeting all those scored elements, bring it to tournament where they get to be evaluated and celebrate all of their achievements. And I think this process can be applied to really anything in life at a macro or a micro level. And the skills that they're going to learn, and you all are going to learn helping them go through this, are really, really great to apply to lots of different things. Um, so while you're using all of those things, you're going to be focused on kind of three central components. And we'll break these down in details as we go. You're going to have your central challenge. So that's that technical challenge, that engineering challenge, that improvisational challenge that you all picked. And that's going to have a set of requirements. And that's what you're going to work on as part of that 2 to 4 months. So that's 60% of the overall score. You're also going to have, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, something called team choice elements. So remember that personal expression piece. These are things that the team totally has freedom on to decide how they want to be scored and what they want to be scored on. So that's 60 points. This whole pie represents 300, or 15% of their overall score. And then they're also going to be learning skills so that on tournament day, they can walk into a challenge and in 5 to 10 minutes solve something they've never seen before. And that's going to be 25% of their overall score. So that's really putting all of that teamwork, that resource management, that time management, the problem solving to the test to see what they've learned and how they can apply that in a short term challenge. So it's really important as we work through all of these that you're focused on all parts of this, right? So while you won't know the instant challenge, practicing and preparing for those instant challenges is also a really important part of the other 75% that you're going to tangibly prepare for ahead of time. Right. So central challenge, that's this problem solving. It's academically based, so there's that focus. All of our challenges involve a research component. We don't expect kids to pick any of our challenges and be able to just know how to solve it on day one. They're written in a way that expects that they're going to have to learn some new things, learn some new skills to be successful in solving these challenges. So if you as team managers are reading these challenges thinking my kids don't know how to do that, that is totally okay. Everybody's in the same boat. We write them in a way that you can learn and grow, and they can work together to figure that out. Um, Improvisational elements are often incorporated into our challenges as well. Um, this year, the improvisational challenge absolutely is where they're going to do research rather than writing a set script and building props and sets and costumes. They're going to learn and research and practice. And then the day of the tournament, right before, they're going to decide what elements they have to incorporate in an improvisational way. Um, we often also have international or intercultural themes. We really encourage teams to learn about people, places, things outside of their day to day, and incorporate all of those things into our challenges as well. Team choice elements. So, in addition to all of those requirements that are written in the challenge, um, teams are going to pick team choice elements. It can be anything that the team wants, as long as it's not an exact thing that's already being scored in the challenge. So these are some photos of some actual teams that I took at Global a few years ago. So you might have a costume, you might have a set piece. So like on the bottom right, look that tree that you see on the bottom right, that's one of our Wisconsin teams. That's wine corks that they used. They went and talked to a winery and got a whole bunch of discarded corks donated to them, and they sorted them into different colors and made that backdrop out of wine corks. You can see next to it on on the left, that little cute little elementary team. They have paper plates and things in 3D that are coming out of their backdrop with some cardboard. So things, you don't have to use elaborate materials for this, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. We see in the middle, you've got the little bird there. Those are cupcake liners on her little jacket, and she made her mask there. She was a bird. So I think as you're thinking about team choice elements, think about the things that your kids like to do. If they really like to make costumes and you don't have that might be something that you want to incorporate. If they spend a lot of time on their backdrop, that might be something that they want to pick. Um, they might want to pick, they could do a song or write some music, choreograph a dance. It really is anything that those kids want that helps bring their skills, their interests, and their personality to the table for these team choice elements. And so I think that's a really cool thing is it allows them that extra freedom. Sometimes people get a little overwhelmed by it because it really truly can be anything. The really important thing is if you're writing it down on a form to describe it, it just cannot be the exact thing that is being scored for another element of the challenge. Instant challenge. So, this is that short period of time on tournament day, 5 to 8 minutes, where they're going to have to solve something they've never seen before. And this encourages teams to think creatively, critically evaluate the use of materials, and really puts their teamwork to the test because they don't have a lot of time and they've got a lot to accomplish. And instant challenges really can be anything that you can dream up. So they might be with props, they might be without props. You might have to put on a performance. They might have imaginary props. You might be given a lot of supplies and you have to make your own props. All of those are valid types of instant challenges. Or they might be given a task where they have to build something as tall as possible, as wide as possible. It might have to hold weight. Or you might have to move something or protect something. Nonverbal communication challenges are really popular. So you or team might have to come up with a nonverbal communication system to convey something to the other members of their team or change something. Or you might have a combination of a task and performance based instant challenge. In the roadmap, and we're going to talk about that, there's lots of sample instant challenges, and online, there's lots of sample ones as well. Um, so your job as you're preparing to tournament is try to expose your kids to as many different types of challenges as possible so that they aren't overwhelmed and they can walk into a room and they've seen something at least formatted similarly to what they might have. And again, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but Elliot, who's our one of our instant challenge masters for Wisconsin, is leading a great workshop um, in a couple weeks that's going to walk through all things instant challenge. So we definitely encourage you to participate in that as well. So you're saying, all right, that's great, Chrissy. But where do we meet? When do we meet? What do we do that? So some of you on the call may have this established already. Some of you may not. So sometimes you may have a coordinator at your school that says, hey, you know what, Ellie, you've got this team. You're meeting on Tuesdays after school and from 3 to 5, and that's when you're going to meet. Other times you might be, hey, you've been voluntold or you volunteered or however you managed to be a team manager. Here you go. Here are these kids. Good luck. So it's really up to you where and when to meet. if you're through a school, oftentimes they have a space for you. Otherwise, basements, garages, anywhere you can find the space really are all appropriate. There's no right or wrong. The important thing is to make sure that the meeting days and times fit your schedule and that you have a conversation with the kids on your team and that everybody is comfortable with that schedule. In general, teams typically start meeting once or twice a week at this point in the season, for shorter durations. And then as the tournament comes closer, you might need to add some additional meetings. You might want some extended time. So, say you're painting backdrops, you might want to, meet for a little bit longer duration on a Saturday so that you can spend some more time if you're going to get all the supplies out to get that done. But it's really up to the team. When I was in fourth grade, just starting out, we met once or twice a week at the school after school. When I was a senior in high school and our goal was to win global finals, we met every day after school and 5 hours every Sunday. And we started August 1st. So it really is up to your team and also up to the goals that your team has. If your goals as a team are, we just want to have fun, we're going to do this, this is new, we're going to meet, and we don't really have strong competitive goals, meeting less may be okay. If your team has lofty competitive goals of winning things, you may need to put some more time in. So as you're thinking about your schedule, and we'll talk a little bit about team goals as well, that's also something to keep in mind. um Age appropriateness is also important, right? If you have younger kids, their focus is not going to be as great as when you have older kids, right? And they're going to need more hands-on time. So, rising stars are going to have shorter meetings than high schoolers. Well, maybe not. Sometimes high schoolers have a really bad time, have attention spans as well. But get to know your kids, see what makes sense for them. If you find after an hour and a half you're not getting anything done because everybody's distracted and they're squirrely and it's not productive, then that might be a really good time for you to end your meetings, right? So I think, as we said, there's no right or wrong way to do this. But as a team manager, definitely, it's yours to lead and propose and be willing to do something that works for your schedule as well. Teams can do work between team meetings at home as well. So homework is totally okay. It is totally okay to send stuff with your kids to come back the next meeting with tasks completed. That is totally okay too. So it doesn't have to always be in person together that you're doing the work. Um, so it is important though to consider where you're meeting and how you're meeting, and that you have an appropriate space for what you're trying to accomplish. So, like, if your team needs to make something or paint something, or things need to dry, or things need to be stored, where is that going to happen? If a team is going to create a mess, is it in a space that they have to leave it pristine and clean the whole time after they're done? Or is it a place that can be a working zone where they leave things out? And obviously, you're going to clean up the paintbrushes and close the canisters, but you can leave stuff out from day to day, right? That's important things to consider. And you may need to move locations for specific activities, right? Like, you may be fine in one location as you're idea generating and writing scripts, but you might need to find another space when it comes time to actually building things closer to the tournament. So definitely consider the activities that are going to be accomplished at your meetings as well, to as you're doing this. Also, I've talked to many team managers that their basements have never recovered from the paint and the glitter, so just keep that in mind as well. Um, but they look at it fondly. Um, so as a team manager, definitely it is your job to make sure that the teams have the resources and the space and what they need to solve the challenge. However, please, please, please set boundaries for yourself of what is reasonable, right? You are volunteers, you are human, and that is totally fine to have a conversation and ask for help too, right? If the kids are wanting to meet more than you're available, maybe there's a parent on the team that can help with some additional meetings or some additional coverage. See what else you have to work with, and just make sure that you're not killing yourself trying to accomplish this as you go. Um, Teams also, like I said, don't have to physically be together. Zoom, Google Meet, virtual meetings are totally fine as well. Not everybody also has to all be together at the same time. As you're working and thinking about your challenge and the solution, while you're coming up with ideas and making decisions, right? You want your whole team there so that you have team consensus for how you're going to do things and what you're going to do. But teams often divide and conquer, right? If you're in the engineering challenge, you might have a few team members that are building their structure and their weights, where other team members are building the costumes and somebody else is making the sets. And that is totally fine. And like, I know that's what my teams did, is everybody, talked and agreed on everything, but then we had tasks that we did ourselves. So maybe, a few team members are going to get together to work on their project and bring it back to a team meeting later too, right? So consider that as well. Especially if you have older kids or you have sports practices or things like that, it may be hard to get all of your kids together every single time you meet, and that's okay. Um, it is really helpful to set a calendar that everybody has access to at the beginning of the season. Um, Virtual calendars you can create pretty easily, like shared interactive Google calendars. That's really great. That is really helpful because then if you have vacations that teams have, team members are going on vacation or are out of town, or things that everybody needs to be aware of as you're planning, then you have all of that as well. Or if your kids and people are more paper people, print out a print out a calendar and make it an interactive activity, right? You write your meeting dates on, you can write when you want things to be done, you can work on it and put all your due dates on. Because part of this too is time management, right? So having that calendar in front of them, and sometimes a paper calendar is helpful so that you can count the weeks that you have and the days that you have and go backwards. Sometimes that physical copy is better for kids and easier for them to tangibly see that time. But I definitely recommend Google or a shared calendar as well, so everybody knows what to expect. All right, questions on that? All right, we're gonna keep going here. So I suspect that a few of you are sitting here thinking, all right, Chrissy, I agreed, was volunteered. Maybe I was excited. Maybe I did it because my kid wanted to do it. Nobody else was doing it. But now what do I do? So we're here to give you some skills and know that you can do this and you're going to be awesome. And the kids are so lucky to have you. So, your role as a team manager, again, you are part of this team. You just have a different role than your team members. You get to be part of it. You get to be a creativity catalyst. I think that's such a cool phrase, right? You're going to help your kids come like generate all of those ideas and express themselves and come together as a team. You're going to educate, you're going to guide them to learn how to work together as a team, to learn how to read the challenge, to learn maybe project management skills, sewing skills, how to make a backdrop, all these things they don't know how to do. You're going to either yourself teach them or facilitate other people and interactions that can help them learn that. You're going to be the challenge expert. We it is totally fine for you to be the one that is the expert on this challenge. Know the challenge, know the DI rules so that you can help keep your team grounded to make sure they're staying on task and focused. You are, we call the interference deflector. You're going to help make sure that every part of that team solution is team directed and team developed, especially if you have work that's being done outside of your team meetings. If something comes back and your little spidey sense is going, and because you'll get to know what your kids are capable of on your team, right? And so if something comes back that doesn't quite look like something that team member might have done, asking those questions to make sure there isn't interference there. And if it is, that you have a teachable moment about it and that you can avoid that. You are the chief safety officer. It is always your job to make sure that your kids are safe. And so we want you to make sure that what they are doing provides a safe environment, and that when they're learning skills, if they're cutting boards, if they're using X-Acto knives to build structures or wiring things, that they're doing all of that in a manner that is safe, and it is never interference for you to step in and stop an unsafe situation. You're going to become a really great facilitator. You're going to manage that meeting space, the calendar, the agendas, help with plans and celebrations, and be part of that along the way. And you're going to be getting really good at asking lots of open-ended questions that don't guide your team to very specific answers, but rather help them think about lots of different possibilities and how they might want to solve those. So, while we talk about the tournament and while we talk about the end result, right, of coming and putting on a performance and having the thing done that's in the challenge, one of the best things is really that process that you're going through. So, you're going to help grow them through their process, you're going to guide them. And one of your jobs as a team manager that is the most important is to be their biggest cheerleader and remember to celebrate as you go. The first time nobody cried at a team meeting, hey, maybe that's a huge milestone and we're gonna cheer. Maybe that's more for the Rising Stars kiddos. But hey, I've never seen so many kids cry as middle school boys whose structures break early. So, people get frustrated and it happens. But as team managers, right, like celebrate the process. Most of these kids have never had to solve a challenge before that's taking them 2 to 4 months, right? So there aren't always tangible physical things that they can look at to show progress along the way. And that's going to be hard for some of your kiddos. And so you're going to want to make sure that you're celebrating and showing them how far they've come and what they've learned and cheering them on and just telling them that you believe in them, because that's really important sometimes, especially when they fail, because failure isn't bad. Failure just provides a learning opportunity. So you want to celebrate when they do overcome things and as they keep going. So, characteristics of a great team manager, you're going to be really, really good at distinguishing the process from the content. The process is yours, the content is theirs. We also want you to remain objective. You may think that the team has the worst idea possible, and you know from day one that it is never going to work. You're not going to tell them that. You're going to let them fail and you're going to let them learn. And, you know, that might happen 2 weeks into their process. That might They might be stubborn and it might happen on tournament day. And that's okay. I'm raising my hand because I definitely had something one year that no matter how many questions our team manager asked or what we did, we were stubborn and we just kept going. And did our pulley system fall apart and everything fall down still on tournament day? Yes, yes, it did. But you know what? We learned from that. You're going to help your team work through blocks in the process. If they get stuck, you're going to help them get unstuck and move around that. Either move through it and learn or pivot and try something else. You're going to share that responsibility for your group's journey. You're going to help build those relationships and trust among your team members. We'll talk a little bit about the stages of team development, but kids don't inherently know how to work together, right? Working with others is hard. Like, think about your work colleagues. Sometimes that's nigh impossible, right? When you have to collaborate and get something done. So relationships take work, and you're going to help them learn and get better at that. And they're going to be for the better with it because of it. You're going to listen without interrupting and help them be the center stage. It's their challenge and their solution, and you're going to be there and supporting that. Going to help keep them on track. So while you can't tell them how to solve the challenge, if what they're doing really doesn't meet the challenge requirements, it is totally fine for you to pull that challenge out and say, "Hey guys, look, what does this say what we have to do? Do you think that that meets this requirement?" Well, no. Okay. Well, then what else could we do? So you're going to help keep them on track and make sure that when it comes to tournament day that they can be as successful as they can be. And you're also going to teach lots and lots of skills, and give them the toolkit that they need to be able to solve these challenges on their own. And the most important thing is just make sure that you have a trusting environment, a positive environment, a safe space where you recognize and respect differences and guide your teams. I was on DI teams with my friends, and that was one of the worst experiences of my life. My 6th grade DI team was 6 girls, and they were catty, and we fought, and we got nothing done. And then next year in 7th grade, my best friend and I said, "We don't care what we do, but we wanna be on a team with the boys. We wanna be on a team with other people. We just need to not do this anymore." And I ended up on a team with a few people that I knew, some other people that I didn't know, and that's the team that I was on for 5 years all the way through high school, and we won 2 global championships with. They weren't my friends. They had all different skill sets, but we learned to respect those skills in one another, and we became better because of it. So, if you have a team that doesn't know each other, sometimes that's great. If you have a team that's friends, sometimes that can work really great too. But it's important to recognize that as well so that you can support all members of your team and in that environment and meet them where they are. Um, and value that they're going to learn and they're going to change and they're going to grow. And the whole time, just make sure that they're safe and they feel like they can contribute and they feel like they can fail and that it's going to be okay and that they can pick themselves up and learn from that. And just encourage them. Let fun happen. You should absolutely work some breaks and some fun and some running around time into your team meetings. The business and the tasks at hand are important, but definitely sometimes it's just good to let your team play as well and play together and encourage them in that as well. All right, interference. So we talk a lot about interference in DI. And we use this thing called the interference triangle in a lot of places. It's in the rules of the road, it's in the roadmap, it's in a lot of places. So, the foundation of this pyramid in this triangle are skills and the challenge and the rules. That is the area that you, as team managers, are 100% going to live in. It is absolutely your job to teach your kids the skills that they need and make sure that they understand the challenge and what they have to do and what the rules are. It is then the kids' job to apply those skills and the rules into their solution. So that top solution part is where you're hands off. But the kids aren't going to be able to do that unless you build that strong foundation with them to be able to be successful in their solution. So, interference truly just means help from any non team member. So, that's you all as team managers. The dangerous area is usually parents and siblings because they just want to be helpful, or it could be teachers or other students not part of the team. So it is important to teach your kids about interference. So if they do go home and are working on a project, that they can talk about that. It's important too, like if they ask a teacher at school how to do something or they go somewhere, one of the first things that they're going to want to do is, what are you trying to accomplish? And then the people that they're asking about want to be very specific then to teach them how to solve that exact problem. Well, in DI, we don't want to do that, right? We want to leave it vague so that they learn high level skills and are taught those high level skills so that they don't have that interference. And it can include a lot of different things. I think the first one is the obvious one. It's the actual like building or creating part of the team solution. But it can also be suggesting materials, processes, methods, or things that the team should use to create their solution, or even as a team manager, asking questions that leads them to one specific solution. We want the kids to have lots of options and lots of possibilities and synthesize all of that information to come up with the exact solution that they're trying to do. And so, just some things to keep in mind. Skills are really great. And right now is a great time to teach skills. If you teach skills before they've come up with ideas, you absolutely cannot interfere. So, teaching skills early is a really great thing. As team managers, it's also really good to learn what skills your team members have that they already know. So, if somebody knows how to sew or paint or, works with grandpa in the workshop and builds things. Those are all skills that it's important for them to learn, or, origami or taekwondo. Get an assessment of all those skills. Also, learn what the parents can do. If you have parents on your team that have really great skill sets, it is wonderful to encourage them to teach some of those skills as well, because it is absolutely not interference for your team to be taught skills. What you're doing with those skills is building their toolbox. And if they have those skills in their toolbox already, they may come up with solutions that they never would have thought of because they didn't know how to do something before. And now that they know how to do it, those expand the ideas of what they might do. So, skills are really that toolbox that you're going to build. The challenge and the rules are also really important to say, to work through. Now, those of you that are reading the challenge, you might be a little bit overwhelmed, and I promise you're not alone if you are. Our challenges are a lot and they are robust and they have a lot of words, but it is absolutely not interference for you as a team manager to help break down those challenges and help them understand. If you have third graders, it's probably going to be really overwhelming for you to just print off a challenge in the 100-page rules of the road or however long it is this year and say, good luck, have at it, read it. We'll talk about it next week. You might want to break it out, bullet it, put it on a PowerPoint and walk them through it, write it on a whiteboard, talk and break down those components to help them understand what it is that they have to do. The challenge isn't understanding the challenge for the kids. The challenge is to get the kids to solve it, right? So we want them to understand what it is that they have to do. And if you're confused, ask. If you have other team managers that ask them. If you have a school coordinator, they are a great resource for help. Your regional directors, wonderful resources. There is also a process called the team clarification process where you can write into the International Challenge Masters and ask for clarification on the challenge. I, for engineering, answered a clarification from a team last night. There was confusion and they wrote in and we answered it. So that process is there and you should absolutely use that. We'll show you where you get to that here in a few slides. But then it is really important then to understand that the team solution is the teams alone. And that is really should be something that the kids are proud of, right? Look at what we did. This is ours and we did this, nobody else did this. And and I think that that's really cool. Um, so we have something called the Declaration of Independence. So every team is going to have to sign this and declare that everything that they did is theirs and theirs alone. And they do this for the team challenge portion when you submit your online forms ahead of time. And then at the instant challenge portion, you're going to declare that you didn't know anything about the instant challenge in advance. And I think that this just really does a level set. So as officials, as appraisers, as challenge masters, because teams sign this, we assume that everything in front of us, the kids did themselves. That being said, kids don't lie. So when we ask questions like, oh, can you tell us how you made this? Oh, well, my mom sewed that. If it comes out it's not fair and it's not a level playing field, and we will assess a deduction to make sure that it's fair for every other team. But it's important that your team knows this and that when you sign this, they understand what they're signing. So definitely don't just check the box and not talk about this. Make sure that you talk about this with your teams and your kids so that they know this and that they're proud of that. So things that you can do, we kind of talked about a lot of this. Um, Bullet 2 is one of my favorites. Use instant challenge and team builders effectively. There is no interference in instant challenge practice. So, you all, as smart and trained team managers, can be very strategic. If your kids have a backdrop they're building, for instance, that just keeps falling down, what if you picked a building instant challenge and you talked about how to stabilize some things as part of that instant challenge? And you talked about how to, brace some things. Well, you can't tell them how to fix their falling over backdrop, but you can give them an instant challenge that talks and works through that and that they can do. And then you, as a team manager, can facilitate and talk about different ideas and how you might do that. So, then what you hope is that they apply those skills into what they're struggling with in their team challenge. Same thing with team builders if they're struggling with different things. You can arm your team and your parents about interference. We'll talk more about the roadmap, but page 44 of the roadmap has an interference contract. It's something you print off and send home. And you, as a team manager, agree to it, the parents agree to it, and the kids agree to it. So it's a really good way to facilitate that conversation. And then, you're going to ask lots of open ended questions. If something didn't work, just ask, hey, why do you think that didn't work? What's another way you might be able to do that? You know, how else could you change that? Do you think that's the best you could do? How might you modify it to make it better? Like, all things that you could ask and say, right? None of these questions are going to lead them to a very specific way of doing things. They're not going to tell them how to do things, but they're going to make them instead think about it on their own and come up with solutions to how things might be solved. So, here are some examples of interference. There's some more examples in the roadmap as well, but these are just a few examples and what you could do instead. So, if a parent is helping with a project from home, that usually indicates that a parent wants to be helpful, right? They're not doing it on purpose. They want their child to be successful. They want to feel like they're contributing. So, if you have a very hands on parent, channel that into something useful. Have them bring a snack, give them an instant challenge, and have them stuff some bags with supplies and send that in. Have them come and teach a skill. Give them something else to do, is a really good way to funnel that into something you can do. Interference would be the team manager telling a team member where to stand during script practice. What you can do instead is record that script practice and play it back. And then the kids can see themselves that they had their back to the audience the whole time. So you facilitating that recording happening is not interference. It would be interference then if you watched the recording and told them. But, you can help them see it themselves, right? Because you from an outside perspective are going to see different things than they are. A parent demonstrating how to do a skill on the team's actual prop. Instead, have them demonstrate that skill on something completely unrelated to the solution, and then the kids will take that knowledge and do that. On tournament day, things sometimes break in transport. It is totally okay for the parents to transport the props and carry them in, but if it is something is broken, that is a no-no and that is interference. The team has to fix it. So you as a team manager are going to help your kid be prepared with a fix-it kit ahead of time and brainstorm ideas for if this happens, what might you do? And make sure you have all the supplies needed for them to fix it themselves if that happens. Um, it is interference if you, as a team manager, make a trip to the hardware store to purchase supplies without a team provided list. So, say your team is doing engineering and they want glue for their structure, and they just say, hey, hey, Mr. Cass, can you bring me some glue so that I can work on my structure next week? And that's all of the conversation that you have. I, as a team member, am thinking I'm going to use Elmer's glue. right, wrong, or otherwise, right? And Elliot comes back with like model airplane glue. Now, Elliot has just made a choice for me, right? About what kind of glue that I was going to use. Now, do we think that that airplane glue might be more effective than Elmer's glue? Well, yes. But instead, what you'd want to do is say, okay, what do you want to use the glue for? What are different kinds of glue? What do you want to use it for? Let's do some research and figure out what the best kind of glue might be. And then if they say, I want this specific kind of glue, it is absolutely not interference for you to go to the store and buy that. But just make sure that you're not making choices in your purchases that would lead teams to very specific solutions. A team manager cuts a board for an elementary team because they felt it was unsafe. Now you're going to say, hey, Chrissy, you said if safety was a concern, you should always step in as a team manager. Yes, that is absolutely true. However, it is your job for a team manager to stop the unsafe behavior, but then help the team to find a way to do it safely. Maybe they need to cut that board and they're not going to use a power saw. Maybe they're going to use a hand saw. And that's okay. It may not look as great and it may take a little bit longer, but maybe that's the safe way for them to do it. I also do know and have seen elementary teams using power tools in a very safe manner as well with adult supervision. So it is possible. So it is absolutely, and you should step in if something is unsafe, but it's your job as a team manager to help them find safe ways to do it. A tip about boards being cut. Places like Home Depot will cut boards to size for you, which A, helps your budget because you only have to sometimes buy the amount that you need. And B, it is not interference because it is a service that they provide for everybody. So if you need a board cut to 6 feet or 4 feet, it is not interference for them to make that cut if the kids come in and direct that they have a very specific measurement. Now, that's within reason. If they're going to be mitering corners and doing lots of fancy work and things like that, then that would be interference. But, it is totally fine for you to do certain things like that, like having a simple cut be made at the store you're purchasing at to help with the safety aspect and also the transportation and waste aspect of that to not have to buy more than you need. So this is just a mock-up of something that I've seen used over the years. And we will make sure you have this. There'll be a whole folder of things that we send to you after this training. Is a great thing for you to print off and facilitate conversations with your team if you need to buy things. What's needed, what size, what color, how much does it cost, right? Kids don't have any idea how much things cost. So having them do a little bit of research ahead of time about what they need is a really good exercise as well. When do they need it? Where are you going to go to purchase it? If you can't find it, what else might you buy instead? How is it going to be used? Have them draw it to see how they might use it. So just a really kind of a fun interactive activity that you as a team manager can have your kids do if you are purchasing supplies and things. Now, if you're not buying things and you just, if you're going to have them start building some things and working on some things and you've got a bunch of glue and a bunch of paint and a bunch of stuff in your basement and sitting around the house and you want to just bring a whole bunch of supplies in and plop them down and see what they want, that's not interference. It's just interference if you are after something very specific and help make choices for that. So you don't feel like you have to have a list of very specific things for everything. Just ask yourself, is what I am providing going to allow for multiple different ways to do this or lots of different ways for the team to do this? Or is what I am providing making it so that they have a very specific choice in one way of how they have to do it? So I think that's a good rule of thumb. And then this is that interference contract we kind of talked about on page 44 of the roadmap. All right, question break. I know it's a lot. We'll give you the slides. You got this.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
So my kids had a question that if they're given a budget and they go and they spend that on whatever that they thought they needed for the challenge, can they use things around the house? Like a couple kids have 3D printers. They wanted to know if they can print things out. I had suspected no, but I said I would check.
Okay, so your team budget is only what you have on tournament day. It's not the supplies or the things needed to make it or the tools used to make it. So it's at the and it also any prototypes or things that you don't use don't have to be included. So if you buy a yard of fabric and you only use a quarter of a yard, you would prorate it to only use that quarter of a yard. If they're trying to print things, the cost of the printer absolutely does not need to be included in that. It is also you don't have to buy everything. The idea behind the team budget is to kind of level the playing field. So
Mhm.
everything has to have a value, and could another team do it for the amount of money provided? So the rules of the road lists really detailed accounts of how to price things. So yard sale,
Mhm.
garage sale prices if you're finding things around the house.
Oh, okay.
So
So
everything
there's
still should have a value except for true trash supplies, like cardboard, pop tabs, things like that. Or there's also some things like musical instruments, computers, some technical things
yeah.
that also are exempt that they can use in the budget. So definitely take a look at the rules of the road. I will be doing a training in January that goes through full details of expense reports and how to do all of that kind of stuff as well. But in the
Okay.
meantime, I would say take that. But yeah, if it's tools, if it's things like printers or things to do things, even like 3D printers, you absolutely can use all of those things.
Yeah, and then I wasn't sure if we have to like price the filament that they use or something
Well,
in the
it would be like if you were using in your challenge solution for like 3D printing, it would be the filament cost that you would price.
yeah, okay, got it.
Yep.
I'll take a look at the rule of the road. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? Great question.
Actually, I have another question.
Yeah,
Um,
perfect. Go for it.
so we've had a couple meetings. We started kind of late, and the team is kind of blocked on two challenges right now.
Mhm.
Three for is for one and three for the other one. And I've tried to kind of ask questions to let them debate and get their points across and whatnot. Um, how else can I help them come to consensus of what it is they want to do?
You could have them pick. I think, looking at a skills, and I'll talk about some of the things in the roadmap that you can use to help facilitate. And I'm doing a training on the 8th of December, which is probably a little later than you want for this, though,
Mhm.
on how to facilitate. So I take that back. That's probably too late for you. But I think, really trying to break down the components of each of the challenge and where do they want to be spending their time, right?
Hmm.
And how much the
Mhm.
points are worth. So the more points something is worth in a challenge in general, um, the more you're going to want to spend time on that. And really break it down to say, okay, if we did this challenge, who would want to work on this part? And who would want to work on this part? And who would want to work on this part? And if we
I
did
see.
this challenge, who would want to work on this part? And who would want to work on this part? Right?
Mhm.
And kind of get a little bit more detailed on and have them think about and even maybe brainstorm some ideas for each. Or if there's one part of a challenge that the kids are really excited about, is there a way to incorporate some of those elements as team choice elements into the other challenge?
Yeah,
Right?
I just
Or a
thought of that
story
tonight.
theme. Yeah, so like there's a lot of things that you can do. I mean, ultimately, even if you're divided 3 and 3 or you were divided 3 and 4, that's not always a great way, right, to start your season where you've got some kids
Yeah.
that are just not jazzed about it.
Yep, yep.
But that's what I would recommend is to get into the details of those challenges and those actual elements and start thinking about what about those challenges is exciting for them
Yep.
And if it's the theme, then maybe you can incorporate a theme in another.
Yeah, yeah, we talked about the details and we had the team members for each side come up with like examples to show the other side. And I think in the end of last week, at least, they were still very excited about certain things. So I was just trying to think about what else to do this week to help
Yeah.
them come up with
Um,
things.
so let's go through the training and I will give you my email. And
Yep,
if you want to talk about this more one-on-one and get specific about what they're thinking about,
sure.
where you're not sharing ideas with the whole group, I am very
Yeah,
happy to have a one-on-one off conversation with you or with
perfect. Thank you.
anybody on this. You're going to get my personal information and I don't give you that because I don't want to hear from like it just because, right? Like please email and I'm happy to have conversations
Thank you.
to help. Because yeah, it is hard. And I think the best you can do is just kind of help facilitate and hopefully you come to that consensus. But eventually you do have to make a decision so you can start moving forward. So,
Yeah,
all right, I'm going to keep going and hopefully there's some other ideas that might help as we go through the rest of this training. All right, knowing your resources. So, my goal is for you all to have lots and lots of resources for you to find and look at and use, whether that's like paper, electronic resources, or people, right? After the fact, you are not alone. We are here to help. Um, you are going to want to make sure that you have access to something called the resource area. And I'm going to just acknowledge that I'm an international challenge master, so I have access to lots of things you probably don't. So if on these drop down menus you see some things like create score sheets and things like that, um, don't expect to see that. But under documents, view documents, that's where you're going to find all of this information. And your challenges are all in here. The rules of the road is in there and the roadmap is in there. That's also where you're going to get to clarifications and a lot of other things as we talk through. You will need a login to do this. We're not going to go through that right now, but if anybody is having challenges getting into the resource area, you'll need to have a team member purchased and you'll need to have access and you'll need to have a login so we can help you one-on-one offline. But this is the central place that you're going to be going to view all of the information and materials that we're walking through tonight. There are 3 things that are required materials for the DI challenge. Everything else is helpful, supplemental. You don't need them. These are the 3 things that you as teams have, and the 3 things that those of us that are appraisers and volunteers have. The rules of the road, the team challenge, and published team challenge clarifications. And we're going to walk through each of those and why they're important. So the rules of the road is really long. You as a team manager may be the only one that reads it in its entirety, but there are some important sections that you should bring forward to your team. It outlines all of the rules, the procedures, and the requirements for Destination Imagination. So you as a team manager, you should absolutely read this cover to cover. As a team member, you should pull sections out and content out that are important. So, like the team budget and the expense report and how to value your solution, that is really important. There are safety guidelines, especially if you're going to use anything technical like circuits and wiring, batteries, things like that. That's a section that's going to be really important. So there's certain things in here that are really important for you to talk through with your kids, especially depending on what they're doing. But I definitely recommend as a team manager that you pull those pieces out and share them with your teams as they're relevant versus just sending this document as a homework assignment because it's way too long. I'm pretty sure I was the only person on my team that ever read it. But my team knew that and I knew it as a reference. That's another good thing too. Make it somebody's job to be the rules the road expert on your team. So if you have a team member that really likes to read and get into the details of that, make that part of their job. And when you have something, they're going to pull that out and reference it. But it's important, but it's more of a reference than something you're going to be referring to constantly. Your team challenge is going to be what you should always have in front of you and be looking at every single team meeting. It outlines your time limit, your cost limit, all of those requirements, and the scoring. So definitely make sure that you have this handy on your iPads, that every kid has a copy of it. I recommend having a printed copy as well. Sometimes it's important so that people can highlight things, you can write it up, you can reference it, and it's always available. And then publish clarifications. So sometimes um, there are things in the challenge that are confusing or wrong or a gray area or something that comes up that the International Challenge Masters and DI headquarters feels they need to clarify. And that is something called a published clarification that goes out and it supersedes the rules of the road and the team challenges, as well as any team clarifications that are happen. Also, sometimes this comes up, right? If we have 50 teams ask the same question about something in a team clarification and we realize it's confusing, we might put out a clarification. There are no clarifications, I believe, as of last night that were published for team challenges this year. So what you got a screenshot of is an example from last year, just so that you could see what it reads like. So this says, in the challenge table 2, mode of transportation should be replaced with elevator, right? So like it's very specific. It's going to reference a section in a part of the challenge and just add words, replace words, clarify words. So I recommend that this is a job for somebody on your team. Make somebody, you as a team manager should check too, but make somebody on your team have the job of always on top of published clarifications. And there's not usually very many. A challenge might have 1 or 2 or none for the year. But if it is one, you want to make sure that you know that. And you find that in the resource area, you'll log in, and then under Teams, you'll go to clarifications, and then there's a tab that says published clarifications. So that's where they find that. Um, everything else that you have is going to be supporting. So the training library, we're going to show you where that is, team clarifications, roadmap, parents, volunteers, me, Elliot, your regional directors, all of us are here as support and resources for you. But those 3 other things are where you want to start. And you're going to try to find the information that you need in those 3 areas first. Trainings, really great resource. So under my account, under visit trainings, you have access as a team manager once you're registered to view lots of training modules to walk through different parts and components of the DI challenge. So this is a screenshot of trainings that are out this year. There's some more coming. There will be challenge specific trainings, I believe, that are coming out. There's 2 modules for project management right now. There should be 2 more coming out here in the near future. You will need a separate email account and credentials for that, but once you register, you should get a separate email from a woman named Chris Beisel in headquarters to get you access to the training videos. So definitely a lot of this content is being covered here, but those are all available for you as well. Team clarifications. Every team gets 10 clarifications. They're yours to use. As the person that answers these, please ask. We would much rather have you write in and ask a clarification if you're confused about something in the challenge than being confused. So, be specific. 1 question per clarification. You as a team manager will have to submit these on behalf of your team. So you'll go in under clarifications and team clarifications, you'll be able to type in your clarification question and submit it. We can't validate solutions we haven't seen, but we can often give guidance towards what the challenge does or doesn't say. So just keep that in mind. All at final choice decisions about if something is legal or meeting challenge requirements does have to happen on tournament day, just because we can't, until we physically see it, make a call on it. But if you're confused, please ask. And then couple days usually go by, and you'll get a response back directly from the International Challenge Masters. So every challenge worldwide has two people that are considered the worldwide experts in that challenge. And so they are the ones that are responsible for writing all the training materials for all of the appraisers and challenge masters in your local affiliates, and making sure that everything is consistent and clear. And they also run the global finals tournament for that challenge, is the role of an international challenge master. And then locally in Wisconsin and Minnesota, we have challenge masters that are over the affiliate. And then each of the regions, we have challenge masters that locally will work with you at those. And they're really just the experts that run your challenge sites, that answer your questions, hand back your scores, things like that. Minnesota, we have a Minnesota counterpart and a Wisconsin counterpart, so there'll be two of us working together for your tournaments at those. And so that's what a challenge master is. But please write, please ask. No question's a dumb question. And we want you to not be confused. So you have 10, use them wisely, but please feel free to use them if you need them. Any questions on kind of the resources? Otherwise, we're going to keep going and talk about the roadmap. All right. So I'm going to caveat that this is a very overwhelming document that is very long, if any of you have looked at this. It contains a lot of information, but it should be used as a tool for you to help, not a tool that you need to live by. If you try to do everything in the roadmap, you will do nothing but the activities in the roadmap and you will never solve the challenge. So you should look at it and read it and use what's helpful for you. And if something isn't helpful for you, don't feel like you have to use it. What I've done is gone through all of the chapters and picked out some of the things that I think are really worth it and help you know where to look if you need certain things, because it might not be useful now. But if your team gets stuck, you might want to go to a certain point in there and learn a little bit more about it. So there are 9 chapters, and they range everything from overview to really detailed creating project plans, instant challenge, team building, facilitation, lots of tools, lots of things. Chapter 1, the introduction. What I think is really a lot of the things we've talked about here tonight are in here. So the creative process, the DI pedagogy, how to use the roadmap are really important. But one of the things that I think is really great is this getting started checklist. So as a team manager, this checklist is just kind of a minimal thing for you to read and take a look at to make sure that you're doing all of these things and that you've done all of these things. It's pretty high level, but it's a good thing to look at and just make sure that you are doing throughout your DI season. Chapter 2 is all about project-based learning, social and emotional learning, and has a very 10,000 foot view project management overview. Good stuff. I think everything in here is really interesting, and I encourage you to read the whole thing if you're interested in it. If you don't have the time though, and you don't want to, that's okay too. You're here tonight, so we're gonna give you lots of good information to be successful. But there is a requirements identification worksheet here, which I think is a really useful tool. So as your teams are reading the challenge, you can list the things out that have to be included as a challenge element. So like for one challenge element in the challenge. So like I'm going to pick engineering because that's top of my head because I'm low at engineering has to build an expansion effect, right? So you might be talking at a team meeting about an expansion effect. What must be included in this challenge element, and write all the things that must be included. What must not be included, things you can't do. List all of those things. And how are you going to earn points for this? What will you be scored on? That's an important part as you're reading challenges to see how they're being scored. So there's a page in the challenge that's all about the scoring that tells you exactly what the appraisers are evaluating. as you're going through, make sure that your team knows how you're being scored on these elements and write it down. So I think if I was going to pick one thing from chapter 2, this worksheet would be it, especially if you have new teams that are learning together how to read a challenge. Break this down. Now, you don't have to do it for everything, but maybe you do it for one or two elements just to get them used to it. And then you can not do it as formally as a form. They just kind of get the hang of it. But like if it's useful, use it. If it's not, totally fine. Chapter 3 in the roadmap. A lot of what we covered in this training is really skills and resources for you to be a team manager. I think one of the most useful things in here is that there is, that we didn't cover tonight, is a little checklist of a supply box. So, not an end all be all, but if as a team manager, one of the things is you kind of want to have a bag of tricks, right? You want to have some stuff, some things that you can pull out to do some instant challenges on the fly, some things that you might do some team building activities for, just some general supplies and things that you might need for your team meetings. Not comprehensive, but a good place to start. And a great thing is if your parents want to help participate, you could send a list of a few of these things home with each of your kids and ask them to bring them in to build your team supply box so that you don't have to have and buy all of these things. A lot of it you're probably going to have sitting around the house as well. But these are just some main materials and things that are useful for a lot of instant challenges and things. So if I was going to pick one thing in chapter 3, other than, everything in this training is included here essentially, it would be this checklist. All right. Chapter 4, access and belonging needs for teams. So we really believe that anybody can participate in the DI program. And you're going to find with all of your kids that they have different needs, right? They handle things differently, they do things differently. Um, so definitely worth a read, especially if you have special needs kids on your teams or things like that that you're trying to accommodate. This also talks about what kinds of accommodations we offer in Destination Imagination on tournament day and things like that. And also some tips and tricks for you as team managers, avoiding interference while managing some accommodations for your kids. So definitely not all of you. This may not be relevant for all of you, but if it is relevant for you, know that there is some resources and some really good information in chapter 4. What I will say as a takeaway though, is it is important for you as a team manager to make sure that you help every team member find a way that they can participate. How can they help? And how can they feel like they're included? And how can they feel like they have a job and something to do? And so, absolutely something good information, even if you don't have special needs kids, to keep in mind for just making sure it's a safe, inclusive space for everybody. All right, we're gonna break here. Another pause, mostly for me to take a drink of water. All right. Any questions? I don't see any. All right, we're gonna keep going. Almost halfway through here of the roadmap. So now we're getting into kind of the meat of the roadmap, where I think that there's some really useful information. But also, if you try to do all of these things, where you may feel that the process and the paperwork gets a little bit overwhelming and you focus too much on checking lists and making sure you get things done, because every one of your teams are going to operate at different levels and different things. But chapter 5, really, especially, I encourage you to take a read through because it helps just kind of walk through how you might structure and plan your team meetings. I think all of us, right, have appreciated going to meetings where you know what your goal is, what you're trying to accomplish, what the agenda might be. It may not have to be formal, but at least having a rough game plan, right, of what you're going to do with your tiny humans for an hour and a half is always good, right? And ahead of time so that you as a team manager make sure you have all the stuff that you need for those team meetings and that everybody kind of knows what your goals are. It also talks about team benchmarks in this process. We'll talk a little bit more about that here on the next slide, and just gives you some really good sample meeting agendas for like your parent meeting to help what information to cover. Sample meeting, there are down to the details of I have 16 weeks. Here is 16 weeks of agendas if you wanted to do that. I have 8 weeks. Here's sample meeting agendas for 8 weeks. If that's something you need and is helpful, absolutely use it. If it's not helpful, don't use it. But definitely worth, I think, a peruse at a minimum to just get you some ideas of what type of things you might want to talk about or act about or discuss as some of your meetings. Um, when we talk about team benchmarks, there's a lot of really great details about things that you might want to accomplish in like the first 6 meetings, in the middle meetings, towards the end, and things that you might learn and do to help pace to make sure that you can be ready for tournament in time. So, not a one size fits all, but just some things that you might want to roughly keep in your mind as you're structuring and planning your meetings to make sure that you're setting yourself and your team up for success. So, we're not going to go through all of these, but definitely know that that's in this chapter of the roadmap, and I would encourage you to take a read. Um, Reflection is also really important. Make sure that you're taking time at the end of your meetings to just kind of reflect on what did you accomplish? What did you learn? How did we think this went? Is anybody frustrated? What might we want to do differently? Not a lot of time, but you want to make sure that it's a good, productive time for you, that your kids feel like it was worth their time, and that you take some time to plan as well for what you're going to accomplish for any homework that they might have before the next time, any um what you might want to accomplish at the next meeting. So if anybody has to bring anything or you have to bring anything, that you're prepared. So I definitely encourage you to kind of end the quote work time 10-15 minutes early and just take some time to regroup, think about what went well, what didn't go well, what you might need to review or make sure everybody's aligned on at the end of those meetings. So certainly you don't have to ask all of these questions at every meeting, depending on where you're at. But here's some example questions that you, as a team manager, might use to reflect and facilitate kind of this reflection portion of your meeting so that you're not, everybody's here and you're running out the door and you don't have a plan and you don't remember what you did, and just kind of keeps everybody grounded and moving forward. All right, chapter 6. Definitely read this chapter in the roadmap. It talks about all kinds of details about general procedures for instant challenge at tournaments and how you as a team manager can facilitate those instant challenges throughout. It gives you lots of really important processing questions to help ask after instant challenges for the kids. One of my favorites is team roles for instant challenge, which is on page 88, to help just kind of structure that of how to get everybody working together. There's some project management tools. There's some idea generating and focusing tools for instant challenge, some mini challenges, and most importantly, I think some example instant challenges for you to use. So lots of really, really great stuff. And our friend Elliot here is running a really awesome workshop on November 24th that is all things about instant challenge. So definitely, if you're able to attend in person or live, come and support Elliot here on this training. Otherwise, it will be recorded and shared after the fact as well. Elliot, you want to say anything about your training?
It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's our first time having a formal virtual instant challenge training. We normally showcase trainings like this specifically for teams going from regionals to the affiliate and then from the affiliate to globals. But we're just trying this year to level set and make sure everyone's comfortable. And it's not just going to be about instant challenge itself, we're going to walk through like, getting there and your paperwork and the whole process from start to the chill out room where teams end up when they finish.
Awesome. Thanks, Elliot. So yeah, definitely we don't have time to go through all of that right now, but use the roadmap, and if you can, take a look at this training as well to get all kinds of more information about Instant Challenge. Any questions? We're nearing, I promise we're getting through it. We're nearing the end. All right, awesome. All right, chapter 7. My bullet says chapter 6, but this is chapter 7. So chapter 7 is all about creative thinking, critical thinking, and lots of tools and things that you as a team manager can use to help your kids come up and generate ideas, and how to focus those down, and how to turn all of those crazy wild ideas into actual deliverables that you can build and make and bring to your challenge solution. There's lots and lots of really great things. This is one of my favorite chapters. And actually, I've got a training, we'll talk about that on the 8th of December, that is all about this chapter and how to do this. But one of the things that I love that's in there, and there's a screenshot of this, is a decision-making matrix, where you can all agree that how you're going to solve and who's going to be the decision maker for different parts of your challenge. So, and if you can't, and if you need to have a consensus, or how you're going to reach a consensus if you can't. So that's why I'm saying, if your team isn't figuring out how to solve your challenge, there's some tools in here you might be able to help use to figure out which challenge you want to pick, and how to generate ideas for lots of different things. One of the most important things, and we'll get more into this on the 8th, that I think is really important, is teaching your kids the skill of fluency, and that no idea is a bad idea, right? It's a skill. Not everybody is really good at this. And so you want to make sure that you do a lot of this, and that you get your kids used to just throwing ideas out quickly, because the more you do it, the easier it is. The quicker you get ideas out, the quicker you're going to get to the good stuff. So if you look at this little diagram, when you do this with your teams, you're going to notice that people are going to start with lots and lots of ideas really quickly, and then you're going to hit a plateau where it's going to slow down, and then it's going to stop, because all of the things were at the top of their head are out of their head, right? The easy stuff has come out, and they're going to hit this plateau. You as a team manager are just going to wait. You're going to pause, you're going to wait, you're going to facilitate through that awkwardness, because the good stuff is going to come after that silence. They're going to get out all of the easy, common, basic stuff first, and then they're going to think about it, right? And think about what other things people have said, build on other things, and start to get that creativity. One of the things that I like to do, and we don't have time to interactively do this, but verbally, I like to say, name as many kinds of trees as you can. And then your common ideas, everybody is like, oh, an oak tree, an elm tree, a maple tree, a pine tree. Then somebody might say, oh, a Christmas tree. Oh, then that might lead to a money tree, right? So there's a little bit more creativity, and those ideas, right, that come a little bit later are more creative. And then they might stop and be silent. And then as people are thinking, right, because a lot of our kids are competitive and they want to see how else they can come up with ideas. We said, okay, well, you said the word tree. Did I spell tree TREE? Well, maybe it's geometry, symmetry. Maybe we think about tree as a TRY in words, right? So you can see that some of those more creative ideas come out. So this is really good warm-ups at your team meetings. This here screenshot, you will have this in a printout in resources we sound out afterwards. This is just a lot of different ideas for building fluency and warm-up activities that you can do with your teams. So definitely encourage you to just get their juices flowing and get them used to this, right? Because coming up with ideas is a skill set. And you, as team managers, are going to teach them these skills and teach them how to hone those skills. We're going to talk more about this. There's some more advanced areas that you can go from here in the training on the 8th, but this is a good way to get you started. There's also lots and lots of tools that you can use that walk through how to use this. The roadmap does a really good job of walking through different kinds of ways to structure this. The thing I like about these tools is it gets the emotion out of the idea generating and takes this is Elliot's idea or this is Chrissy's idea out. And it just makes things, these are our ideas as a team. And you can look at them a little bit more objectively. You can think about the pros and cons of them, and it can help you take lots and lots of ideas and narrow that down into things that are useful. So definitely encourage you to read this in chapter 7 or come back on the 8th to learn some more about this. The grid that you see here is called the mix and match grid, which is, I think, kind of fun. You can do this. Also, it's great for coming up with instant challenges on the fly to have your kids solve very short little instant challenges, but you can also do it for like your story. So say, hey, name 10 types of heroes we might have in the story. And so your kids are going to just shout out or write down 10 heroes. They aren't interrelated, just 10 heroes. 10 possible villains. Not related to anything else, just list 10 villains. 10 conflicts, 10 settings, 10 things that are funny that might happen in their story. And then what you're going to do is you're going to turn that piece of paper over and have them not look at that. And they're going to pick a number for a hero and a number for a villain and a number for a conflict, a number for a setting, and a number for something funny that happens in their story. And then you're going to read out how all those things that may never have thought to go together and laugh about it. And then maybe you have them give them 3 minutes to come up with a performance to do that. Or we've had teams that have used this for their actual presentation. So just once again, right? Getting the ideas, synthesizing and combining things in different ways than you might not have thought to combine as well. So take a look at these tools, pull some things out. There's a lot of really great stuff in this chapter. And again, like I said, we're going to talk about all things idea wrangling and taking teams from chaos to clarity here. Probably a little project management thrown in as well for good measure. As me, the project manager, I always like to throw a little bit of that in as well. So that's 2 hours of focus on that on the 8th. If you want some other, again, we'll record it so you can watch it at your leisure if you're unable to attend in person. Just a note about the use of AI and DI. I'm not reading all of this. AI is allowed in DI. However, we want to be mindful of using it to enrich the learning process, not as a form of interference. Like you can't ask ChatGPT to write your script for you. That would be considered interference. But you could absolutely use AI to help with research, help work through questions, support ideas, to think about a lot of things. So if your kids, they don't have to use AI, but if you are considering it, definitely take a read through this section of the roadmap. Make sure that you're doing it in a way that makes sense and fits in with the DI process and is used again as another tool in your toolbox that can be used for success. If you do use AI, there is a place on the tournament data form for you to describe the use of AI. So just be prepared for that. We do want to learn that and know how you used it, but it can absolutely be used to help in a lot of different ways. And it is kind of fun if you prompt AI with the challenge and see what it comes up with. Don't show it to your kids, but just for a giggle over a glass of wine, sometimes it's kind of fun. And then chapter 8, teamwork, right? You're going to teach your kids how do they work together. So this chapter has lots of really great things about teamwork, development, common goals and purpose, communication, and respect for people and ideas, right? We want people to feel safe so that they share their ideas and that they're understand that their ideas are respected. So as a team manager, this helps walk you through how to do that and how to be successful. Absolutely, we'll sprinkle a little bit of this stuff in on the training on the 8th as well, because this goes hand in hand with using some of those tools. Um, Something that I think is kind of fun to have your team do that's included in this chapter is an individual interest inventory. So you can have them fill this out and see what kind of areas your team has an interest in. This can also be useful in helping you pick a challenge sometimes, just to kind of see who is all interested in making sure that you have people on your team that have an interest in solving all of the aspects of a challenge, or it might help you with your team choice elements, things like that. So, and it's just fun and interactive. So, definitely a good thing to do. It is also really important to remember that teamwork is a process. So, forming is where you're starting, storming, norming, performing. Your team may never get to performing, and that's okay. But keep in mind that they need to learn how to work together. And you, as a team manager, have a lot of tools and skills to help them based on what stage they're in. And we don't have time to go into all of this, but definitely take a peek here because I think this is a really important part of the process as well, is recognizing where your kids are and knowing that this isn't necessarily linear. They could be performing one day and back to storming the next day, and that's okay. But you, as a team manager, can help keep them focused and keep them learning and keep them working with each other through these processes as you move forward. Your top performing teams generally are in that performing stage. And if you're storming all the time, you're probably going to struggle in instant challenge. But you've got lots of tools to help, and they can learn and grow through the stages. One of the things that you can do to do this is lots and lots of team builders. I have 19 of my favorites that I'm going to be sharing in a document after the training with using lots of simple things that you have around the house. These are just fun. If your team is getting squirrely in a meeting, you can just break and do a team builder. There's things with tennis balls and hula hoops and lots of different things. So we'll be sharing lots of ideas. Also, Googling team builders can come up with lots of things, and the roadmap has some really good examples as well. Chapter 9, project plan. So this defines it. If you are interested in project management, I highly recommend the trainings in the training resource area. It breaks this down and walks through it and gives you some practical examples of how you can use these tools to help your team, particularly module 2, and there are more modules coming out. So if this is helpful and your kids find this much structure helpful, absolutely use it. But if your kids don't find, filling out paper forms and you're not going to get them to focus and do this helpful, and you don't want to be quite as structured going through this process because it doesn't work for your team, that's okay too. Use it if it works. If it doesn't work, that's okay too. But lots of really great information here. But definitely don't expect that you're going to do all of the things in here for every element of the challenge and actually get through it all and have time to work. It's a lot, but there's some really good stuff there as well. And again, yeah, these trainings are really useful. If this is an area of interest, highly recommend spending some time. They did not take me 45 minutes to go through. Um, Also think about the resources. Who do you know? Who can help? You are not alone. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Um, please use the resources that you have. It is, even if it's just, I need a chat with a friend and vent, that's okay too. Sometimes you just need to do that because you had a really rough meeting. So find a buddy, find some support, and don't be afraid to reach out for help. We really, truly, all of us do DI here in Wisconsin DI because we love it and we love and appreciate you all. So we want to support you. Ask for help in your parents, but structure how they ask for help. Make sure you're getting medical information, emergency numbers, snacks, supplies, how they can help. Don't be afraid to ask. You don't have to do it all yourself. Um, so what do you do now? You're going to log into destinationimagination.org. You're going to get a password. If you don't, you'll have to accept the code of conduct for 2526. This will get you in the resource area. That's where you're going to get all of the things that you need. And then you're going to need a team number. You're going to have a background check. And you're going to have your kids access to everything. And then you're going to be meeting with your team, which I think many of you are already doing, which is awesome. If you haven't yet, you're not behind, you're right on schedule. So you've got this. We believe in you. And I promise there's my personal email. Use it, please. I will absolutely email back if it's something quick. And if not, I live in the Madison area, happy to grab a cup of coffee with somebody if you're local. Otherwise, happy to hop on a phone call and a Zoom as well. I really truly mean that. We're here to help.